Hey, Rollie.
What's up, Nicole?
What are you doing now that Climate Town is shut down forever?
Well, I guess I'll go back to my true love of making billiard video. Wait a minute. What do you mean? I thought Climate Town was doing just fine.
Have you seen this new movie, Climate, the movie, parentheses, The Cold Truth, that totally disproves everything we thought we knew about climate change?
Oh my God!
Rollie, I've brought you here today to talk about a movie, a perfect movie, called Climate the Movie.
I cannot wait to talk about this. I have a billion things to say, all positive.
Yes.
And first I'll say 10 stars out of 5.
Yeah, no notes on this movie. It was perfect. It was made by a guy named Martin Durkin, who we've talked about on the podcast before. But this is his brand new movie. It's a sequel to one he made in 2007.
And barely a sequel, more of a reboot.
So we've both watched this movie, but for those of our listeners who haven't, and I hope it's all of you who haven't watched it, let's set the tone a little bit. Let's play a little bit of a clip so you get a sense of what we're talking about.
Since the Industrial Revolution, the development of free market capitalist mass production has made ever more goods ever more affordable to ever larger numbers of people. Mass production marched hand in hand with mass consumption. In the modern age, ordinary people enjoy a level of prosperity never before achieved in human history. But all the while, we're told we were destroying the planet. Computers have calculated what is in store for us as we produce and consume ever more. The weather will get worse. The planet will boil. We greedy humans must accept limits on our lifestyle. Consume less, travel less. Those who deny the climate crisis are not just wrong, they're dangerous, spreading the poison of doubt among a gullible population. These deniers should be shunned and shamed and censored. For these climate deniers are flat earthers. They are anti-science.
Rollie, can you tell us a little bit about what we just saw?
Absolutely. Yeah, we just saw the intro to a tremendous film, but it was all stock footage.
Mm-hmm. All stock footage from the 1950s and earlier.
Yeah, it's a nice looking piece, you know? It's like that's how I would want to edit a video.
Yeah, it's a good aesthetic choice. Although if we want to make the point about like mass overconsumption, like you can kind of fast forward to at least the 80s and 90s. Like, come on.
Yeah, they were, I guess all the like people shopping were shopping in the 50s, and we're like, yeah, that's kind of a quaint way to shop, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also like hitting these very real points with kind of like fake images behind them to make the points seem less realistic, but it was a very accurate portrayal of what is happening currently.
Yes, exactly. It does show that they've been listening. They know exactly like what we're saying.
Yeah.
So I suppose I have to give this documentary credit for being like, well, you at least have listened to our arguments in some capacity.
Yeah, I love that it's taking climate change as it's well understood and happened and sort of making it seem so stupid. It's like if they were like, yes, and humans were so obsessed with birds that they built big metal birds out of big metal cylinders and crammed explosive devices into the back of them and then piled into these metal birds and blasted off into the sky. That's what science is telling you is happening.
Yeah, they're saying a true thing sarcastically.
Yeah, I guess it's a good way to set the tone for this movie, though, because it's like, if you disagree with the first 30 seconds of the movie, you're probably not going to watch it. But if you're already like a denier and you just want a bunch of ammunition, that part's going to land just fine for you and you're going to watch the rest of it.
Yeah. And we're talking about it because it came out this year, but also it's fun to see how sort of the same-ish piece of media or a similar narrative has like transitioned from the 2007 version, fast forward 17 years to 2024 and what that looks like now.
A lot's changed in 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's really fun to see like what new crackpot theories have bubbled up. And I was shocked to find that it was almost none. It was all the old ones.
Yeah, it's very similar. Now, for anybody who didn't listen to season 1 of the podcast, we've already talked about this guy. We talked about him in the It's the Sun Stupid episode. He originally had a movie called The Great Global Warming Swindle.
That's right.
Which you talked about.
Great name.
Yeah,
Swindle.
Swindle.
You can't come back from that. Swindler. Fuck. Game over. It's like when Kendrick Lamar called Drake a pedophile. It's like, what do you do? No, nuh-uh. You're done. You're cooked.
So for anybody who doesn't know, some people call
Kendrick and Drake. Oh, sorry.
Some people call Martin Durkin the Michael Moore of the right.
Who calls him that?
A website I found.
The Michael Moore of the right? Michael Moore is a best-selling documentarian.
Martin Durkin studied ancient and medieval history at the University College London and economic history at the London School of Economics. And he's produced several other things, both film and on TV, the most famous of which was the Swindle movie. And a lot of his projects have been largely critical of environmentalists.
Cool.
And lest you think his experience making all kinds of documentarish content lends him any sort of, authority on this subject, several scientists have claimed that he has misrepresented them and cherry-picked their arguments, including one guy, Carl Wunsch. This is what he had to say about the Great Global Warming Swindle. We actually showed clips of the same Australian debunk of that movie in the It's the Sun Stupid episode, but this is one that we didn't cover before.
In the original version, joined those complaints. Carl Wunsch, the professor of physical oceanography at Boston's MIT, claimed that he was the one who was swindled and that the filmmakers had misrepresented his views. Well, Professor Wunsch says he clearly told them he believes global warming is real and a serious threat. He was cut out of the version you've just seen, along with other disputed elements.
I think I nailed the pronunciation of that name. I was a little off, but for having never heard it before, pretty good.
I would say don't go off of what this guy says the pronunciation is.
Because he's
In
Australian.
my experience, Australians and Brits do not give a fuck how a word is pronounced. I was studying abroad when Barack Obama was elected president, and my little host brother was like, so what do you think of Barack Obama? And I was like, you must have heard it 100 times. Did it sound like that to you?
They do call tacos tacos.
Yeah, and Nike is Nike.
Yep.
It's like, put a little emphasis on
Unacceptable.
it. They're allergic to seasoning, including over a letter.
Anyway, so that guy is just one of several scientists who've complained about their work being misrepresented by Martin Durkin. So this is the kind of guy who is very willing to take people out of context or twist their words to fit his agenda.
Is it possible the scientists didn't know what they were saying?
I think it's unlikely. But hey, you never know. Maybe they were in a fugue state. Is this the second time I've talked about fugue states?
It's got to be the 40th
podcast. Really?
Yeah,
you think
your
so?
eyes roll into the back of your head and you
Maybe
just
I'm in a fugue
rip.
state. So that being said, he's already taken these scientists out of context before in his original movie. Why did he make another one? What could he possibly have to add? Why would he? It wasn't his magnum opus completed? Didn't he debunk the climate scam completely?
Look, when you're on top, you just got to do a little victory lap. Obviously, he destroyed climate change in 2007, and then he's like, I didn't do it enough. Scorched earth. I got to rebomb those villages.
He rebooted it. Everything's IP now, including climate denial.
That's true. He recast it. Yeah.
He didn't recast it. It's a lot of the same guys. But I can turn to an authority on the subject, Martin Durkin himself.
Oh.
He did an interview to promote the movie on a podcast or YouTube show that I've never heard of.
I'm seeing it's from British Thought Leaders, the YouTube channel.
Yeah, British Thought Leaders.
With 6.4 thousand subscribers.
Well, I don't know that I would call them leaders.
Well, they're certainly not followers.
Okay, let's watch this clip
All right,
of Martin Durkin explaining why he made this movie.
All right.
Yes, it's a climate skeptic film. In fact, it aims to go further than being simply a climate skeptic film. It aims to knock the climate alarm on the head as far as it possibly can, and to arm the people who are sort of...
Knock it on the head as far as it possibly can.
Sure.
Knock it on the head as far as it possibly can.
Well, you're knocking it on the head.
On the head.
Maybe at an angle.
Could
and
be
then
at
the
an
head
angle.
rolls off.
Oh, this is deep. This is bars.
It aims to knock the climate alarm on the head as far as it possibly can, and to arm the people who are sort of intuitively skeptical but haven't sort of got the arguments to hand because they've been deprived of them.
Arm the people who have feelings about it. People feel like it's wrong.
Yeah.
And we want to confirm those feelings by any means necessary. You know how facts are important? Not as important as feelings, Nicole.
Now, I will say, his mission statement is a little bit similar to the mission statement of this podcast.
Which is what?
Which is that we're,
Get rich
yes.
off of Soros money.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that not what you're trying to do?
But it is to help clarify these really hard concepts to people who sense intuitively that climate change is a big problem. And the difference is that we're right.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't give a shit what people intuitively think going into this podcast.
Yeah.
I just want to tell them what the vast majority of competent scientists have discovered over the years.
Yeah.
And also do some fun little jokes on the way.
Haven't sort of got the arguments to hand because they've been deprived of them by a rather sort of climate alarm orientated media. So that was the purpose of the film.
One small thing, orientated is a word that people can use. I can't criticize them for that because it's in the dictionary, but it drives me crazy because oriented is a word.
That's true. Orientated. I mean, it feels very British.
Yeah.
It feels like they invented orienteering.
Uh-huh.
And then they can throw whatever suffix they want on it.
I guess, man, but it's just you orient yourself and then you're oriented.
Also, is Orient that's the East, right?
Yeah, you call Asia the Orient. I mean, you don't anymore. Please don't call it that anymore.
I do.
At one point, the royal you call it that because you're orientating yourself. I mean, do they call them orientatal rugs?
I'll tell you this right now. If the Brits call them orientatal rugs, I will blow my brains out. They've done enough damage to how things are pronounced.
And to the Orient, if we're being honest.
Can't say that.
Okay, so that's why he wanted to make it. In terms of how he was able to make it, the funding source isn't 100% clear. I think it's pretty safe to say that somebody like Exxon isn't funneling this guy a ton of money. Every source that I found said that this documentary had a pretty small budget. Having watched it, that doesn't surprise me. Our researcher Canute said that he thinks the budget's about $100,000, so it could have been small donors or self-funded.
50,000 of that has to be a Getty Image subscription.
There's a lot of B-roll in this.
They were pulling from that subscription. They must have gotten a bulk discount on that.
Martin Durkin produced the old movie through his production company called WAG, which sold to a French company called Asacha in 2021 as part of an investment banking style acquisition. So he may have had extra money from that. Fun fact, now WAG is making content like Ancient X-Files, NASA's Unexplained Files, and Strange Evidence, which is a show about CCTV that records supernatural phenomena.
Honestly, I love that. More of that, please.
Yeah, more of that, less climate denial. So anyway, the point is this is not a big budget film. It took next to nothing in terms of what features cost to make. And I think that's reflected a little bit in the film quality. Some things are good and then some things are just weird. It looks weird. All the interviewees have way too much headroom and they're looking a little too far off camera. And some of it is I think an artistic choice and some of it is just kind of lazy, I think.
I think some of it is a visual style that maybe British people prefer. I honestly don't know what a British documentarian versus an American documentarian. Or as the Brits call them, documentatarians. But I do know that there was at least one or two of the interviews that seemed very self-taped.
Yes.
Out of focus. I've done this for Climate Time episodes. So I set up a DSLR and I'm I use a broom to try to zoom in on the focus, and then I sit where the broom was, and I'm I guess this is it, and then everything is out of focus. That befell a couple of people in this video.
Yeah, and there's a couple other just sort of basic filmmaking things that are weird. The lower thirds that are supposed to introduce each of the experts are really inconsistent. They don't come up on the first time the person's introduced, and the title conventions aren't quite the same. And I don't think that's intentionally trying to mislead anybody as much as it is just lazy filmmaking.
Yeah, I guess if we're going to use the conventions of this documentary, it's all a plan, man, to confuse us that the government did. But yeah, I think it was mostly just probably rearranging footage in post, and maybe they had it burned onto the
yeah, definitely
pictures.
possible. Yeah, so this movie is like, it's low budget. It's not like super well made. It's not terrible.
Yeah,
but
I thought it looked fine.
It looked fine. There's a lot of little
Mostly
weird things.
fine.
But it's like fine, but it's little. And so like, why are we bothering to talk about it, you know?
I mean, it was tweeted at me quite a lot of times from various people who are like, what the fuck is this? I was like, oh man, we're going to have to do this on the podcast.
I mean, yes, that's funny, but that is kind of why we're doing it, because it is reaching people on the internet. It has less mainstream popularity than the previous movie, The Swindle, which was broadcast on Channel 4, which is like one of the main channels in the UK. And according to one review, that first broadcast attracted a, quote, healthy 2.5 million viewers, and who knows how many sick ones.
Cut that. Jesus Christ.
And so that was released on regular TV. This one was released straight to Vimeo, where it got like 60,000 views initially. But still, there's like a lot of eyeballs on it. A conspiracy account reposted it to Twitter, where it has over
Wait, what?
A conspiracy account.
Is it called a conspiracy
No,
account?
I don't. It's there. I'm not going to give them the traction.
Gotcha. And I will note, we did not give them the traction because we just downloaded the MP4 file.
That's
and then
true.
Watched the MP4 file separately.
A conspiracy account reposted it to Twitter, and it has over 1.3 million views there.
Wow.
But also, I can't get a good sense of how accurate that is for an 80-minute documentary, because you and I started doing comedy in the pivot to video era, where Facebook was like totally lying about all of your video viewership numbers.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many people made it through a substantial portion of it, but let's assume all 1.3 million people are individual people who watched enough of it to now have some doubt about climate change. And then there's also over 1 million views on YouTube. There's like a bunch of different versions. It's been reposted a few times. So it's tough to get exact viewing numbers, but many people have seen it online. So even though this isn't getting like as wide a release as the original, it's still making sort of small-ish waves in online conspiracy communities, where it's getting enough traction that I think it's worth debunking. It's easy to write this stuff off, but in 2007, even though this kind of thing had more like mainstream backing behind it, it now has the ability to spread online in ways that just weren't around, or at least weren't as convenient in 2007. You're not watching an 80-minute documentary on YouTube in 2007.
That's probably right. Yeah. I mean, also, like, I don't know if this particular debunk is going to convince anybody who was tricked by it. But
well, we got to put something on the Patreon, Rollie.
It's true. And it's also, this is fun for us. I don't know. Like, I see
That's because you're chair 2 for this episode.
Yeah, it was fun for me. I see a documentary like this and I'm like, oh God, the same stuff? Like, how are they gussying up this pig now?
Yeah. Let's talk about how they are gussying up this pig now.
Hey, it's a pig, but pigs deserve to be gussied up too, Nicole.
Tonight our specials are a gussied up pig.
Oh, God.
So there's a couple disinformation techniques that they use throughout the documentary that we should talk about. One is one that you introduced me to on this podcast. I don't remember which episode. I think it was in the context of Vivek Ramaswamy.
Hey.
But it's a gish gallop. And I would sort of consider this whole thing to be a gish gallop, which is just sort of where they info dump everything on you. And you're like, well, wait, but what about this? But you made the argument. Slow down. And that is like what this whole documentary felt like, because there were so many arguments coming at you very fast with a lot of visual information on screen also. Did you feel that way?
I did feel that way. I mean, big caveat here. This is not a debate. It's a, film. So it's always going to feel like a very one-sided argument, unless it's actually a good film that like actually takes into account what other sides are thinking and genuinely positing instead of this like string of bullshit. But yeah, ultimately, I think this is kind of meant to be a wave of overwhelming little tidbits that you don't have the time mentally to process how wrong and also contrary some of the points are to each other. So in that way, yeah, it's a gish gallop where you just like try to overwhelm your opponent with as many things as you can think of with no regard to how true they are.
Yeah, totally. And one big difference between this movie and the previous one is the fact that in 2024, the social media landscape, the internet landscape has totally changed.
Yeah.
So people who believe this stuff can very easily clip this documentary down. It's downloadable on Vimeo, and post it to the platform of their choosing without any real like fact checking or guarantee that any of this stuff is going to be true.
Yeah, and it looks pretty professional, like they've got a good artistic tone, they've got graphs, they've got a lot of stock footage. Holy shit. And it kind of feels like you could plop this into a Twitter thread and an observer might see this and feel as though this is from a very serious documentary that's got backup and sources, when in fact it's from one that I don't know that they did even one fact check.
Yeah, and it's just a staggering number of arguments that they make in a relatively short amount of time. Professor Catherine Hayhoe, who's a big climate voice on Twitter and like debunks a lot of stuff, tweeted, "There's a new climate denial movie doing the rounds. In the first 42 minutes, it manages to hit 25 common and long debunked myths about climate change. That may be a new record." That's a ton. And these are all assembled on Skeptical Science has done a big breakdown of all of these. I'll show you the chart that they put together. This is like every single climate myth that is in this documentary. And it's even like coded with a number that corresponds to the page on their website that debunks it.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Look at that. Yeah. CO2 is plant food. CO2 is just a trace gas. It's both plant food and it also basically doesn't exist. It's so small.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just so many of which we've talked about on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that it really leans on throughout is this appeal to authority. There's all of these interviews with these mostly older white men. There's 2 women in it, very briefly. Girl power.
Nice.
And for an example of what I'm talking about with this appeal to authority, they do this a few times, but this is just one of the clips that I pulled.
Teaching at New York University is one of these climate deniers. Professor Stephen Conlan is one of America's leading physicists. He was a science advisor to President Obama and both vice president and provost of Caltech, one of the most prestigious scientific institutes in the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
That piano music you're hearing is not randomly inserted.
No, it's diegetic. He's playing it.
Yeah, the whole this intro of this guy.
Professor Ben was surprised that I knew the word diegetic. Professor, fuck. I'm calling you that. That's the second time I've done this.
Ben knew it in his head, and he's like, "Please, Nicole, say this word." And then you said it, and then you got mad at him for being happy. Which is, let that be a lesson to you, Professor Ben. Yeah, this is an amazing way to introduce somebody where they're like,
yeah,
they say climate deniers are stupid, but can stupid people play the piano? I don't think so.
I teach climate science to my students at NYU.
Okay. I love that phrasing. So we've just met this guy.
Uh-huh.
It's like Dr. Steve Conlan.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Steve Conlan, one of the leading physicists, like advisor to Obama. We got to trust this guy. And then the way he drops into this, he's like, I teach climate science to my students at NYU.
Mm-hmm.
I think the implication they're really trying to get us to think here is that this is a climate science teacher. He's a physicist.
He's a physicist, and also I'm an NYU alum, and I looked him up, and he teaches at the Stern School of Business.
You do your business. Is that how?
Yeah, that's all of the classes are very stern.
You don't talk. You do the profits and not the losses.
So yes, he teaches at the Stern School of Business, which later they talk about how like that too many disciplines are talking about climate change now, which is like, but you teach business. and which isn't to say he's never taught in a science department, but he is specifically like being a little misleading about what and why he's
For
teaching.
sure. Yeah, I mean, just the phrasing of it, like, you're going to clock this a million times if you ever watch this movie, which fucking don't watch this, by the way. It's bullshit. But if you do, it's a lot of little, like, ticky-tack phrasing that's trying to get you to believe that these guys are climate scientists and geniuses. And it's like, what you're going to bring up later is that they are, in fact, not climate scientists.
Not only am I going to bring it up later, but later is now.
Oh, later is now and before it's gone.
Yes. Rollie, with your permission, I'm going to do a little bit of a gish gallop at you to just kind of run through these guys as fast as possible. So some of the, professors emeritus featured in this documentary are this guy, Steve Koonin.
Steve Koonin.
Dr. Steve Koonin, an NYU professor, theoretical physicist with a PhD in physics from MIT. Sounds pretty credible. According to Naomi Oreskes of Merchants of Doubt fame, he cherry picks and misrepresents outdated materials to downplay the seriousness of the climate crisis. You're also going to see William Happer, a physicist and a professor at Princeton. According to Wikipedia, from 1991 to 1993, Happer served as the director of the Department of Energy's Office of Science as part of the George H.W. Bush administration. He was dismissed from the Department of Energy in 1993 by the Clinton administration after disagreements about the ozone hole.
Huh.
So he disagreed about the ozone hole, which I would say environmentalists can point to as sort of their crowning achievement of the 90s is getting everybody to come together and close that thing.
I mean, there's this amazing pattern that happened throughout history where, like, these physicists who worked on the atomic bomb got super famous, got promoted to, like, these crazy positions in government, and then immediately were just like, I think I'm the smartest man in the world. I mean, I saved America with the bomb that I helped make. I think I'm a genius.
Now, not all of these people worked on the bomb, but in addition to Koonin and Happer, we're also going to see Richard Lindzen, an atmospheric physicist, John Clauser, a Nobel-winning physicist, Willie Soon, an astrophysicist, Sally Baliunas, an astrophysicist. It is a pattern where so much of it is physicists that I tweeted about it, and I was like, does anybody know why it seems to be like so many of the climate-denying scientists are physicists? And I got some answers that I would love to read to you.
Please. Reading tweets on a podcast? Hell yes.
Could you imagine? My friend Josh Frulinger runs a very fun show in Los Angeles called The Internet Read Aloud, which is makes sense because we're reading tweets aloud. He tweeted, physicists believe that they are uniquely equipped to reason out everything about the universe from first principles. My friend Emma Phipps tweeted, generalizing a lot here, but classical physics is very formulaic and reductionist, inputs and outputs. It's also very hard. So people who excel at it may be prone to thinking of themselves as smarter than other, quote, softer scientists, which I thought was pretty insightful. Somebody I don't know named Cameron Friedman tweeted this, which made me laugh. He said, I have a solution to inadequate action on climate change, but it only works on spherical politicians in a vacuum.
Nice. That's a fun bit.
And then somebody named Kevin Marks tweeted this Saturday morning breakfast cereal cartoon at me, which is from 2012. So this has been an observed phenomenon happening for a while. Rollie, will you do the honors of describing this?
Sure. All right. So it's a couple of people who are bringing like a little white-haired physicist in a little dog crate container to their vet. And they say, Doctor, we have this pet physicist and something's wrong. It keeps babbling about linguistics and neurology and climate science. Then the vet looks and he's like, he's a little old, isn't he? How did you know? Well, the physicist has a natural life cycle. Juvenile physicists mostly roll around in books. Once they reach maturity, they are productive and fun. But, well, as they get on in the years, they reach the telling other fields they're wrong about everything phase. There's nothing you can do. I'm afraid it's really best to put him down. Oh, gosh. Oh, no. Think it over. Remember, he's suffering inside, too. And then the couple embraces, and they're kind of sad. Where are you going, honey? I just want a few last moments with the old guy. And then, we had a lot of good times, boy. And then the one line the physicist gets, which is a little rude to physicists, but here it is. Climate models aren't reductionist enough. We can recreate the first language using statistics. I know, buddy. I know.
Really good reading, Rollie.
Thank
really
you
good.
very much.
Yeah, so it does seem like I don't know. It's one of those things where, sure, you can appeal to authority. I'm not doubting that these guys are very good physicists, but just because you're good at physics doesn't mean you know a lot about another specialized field. And that, that's not even like, I don't even think there's any ill will there. I think it is just like when you're good at something, you think maybe you'll be good at other stuff. Like Ben Carson is famously like a brilliant neurosurgeon
Gifted hands.
one of the dumbest people to ever work in public service.
Yeah, and I mean, also, like, these guys seem pretty smart. I mean, that guy played the fucking piano, Nicole.
Could a dumb guy do that?
These guys do seem smart, but I gotta imagine if I'm trying to break into their psychology, it's like, you've been smart your whole life, you've been doing a bunch of physics your whole life, and then when somebody is like, hey, there's a huge problem, you're like, oh, well, I bet it's not that big of a problem.
Yeah.
And then reinforcing this idea that you've already kind of generated, you just like find all this data that fits with the assumption you already had, and you ignore all the other shit, even when it's been debunked for decades. And then you get a documentary like this.
And by the way, I'm sure there are lots of physicists out there who are like, climate change is real. Like, climate change is real and a problem, and we should act on it. So this is not all physicists, you know, hashtag not all physicists.
Wow. Get it trending.
So those are the guys that we're seeing, but let's talk about what we're hearing them say.
Okay.
And it's weirdly like all kind of outdated stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like the way that even climate deniers talk about climate change anymore. Like even like ExxonMobil now is like, climate change is happening, but you need oil as a bridge fuel, or we'll do direct air capture or whatever. And these guys are really hanging on to there is no climate change, which just feels so old-fashioned.
I guess, yeah, because it's been debunked for years.
Yeah.
It is strange to see these arguments come up again and just like know the answers to all of them.
Yeah, and that's why Skeptical Science was able to put together that big chart, which we will link in the show notes.
It's like when Drake released Family Matters and then Kendrick released Meet the Grams like 15 minutes later or something.
Yeah, because
Skeptical Science was able to just like drop this giant debunk because they'd already done it.
Yeah, they already did this
times.
research. Right,
Yeah.
Exactly. Just a quick rundown of some of their arguments. The documentary claims that the medieval warm period was warmer than it is now. False. Globally, average temperature is higher than in medieval times. They claim in the 70s they said there'd be an ice age. False. The vast majority of climate papers in the 1970s predicted warming. We talked about that in the It's Global Cooling episode.
Yeah.
They claim It's the Sun, Stupid, which is the title of one of our episodes. False. In the last 35 years of global warming, solar activity and global temperature have been going in opposite directions. They claim CO2 is plant food. We have an episode about that. The effects of enhanced CO2 on terrestrial plants are variable and complex and dependent on numerous factors.
Yeah, and I guess not to push back, but to like clarify, a lot of these points are not false on their face. They're like, there's a piece of them that's true. Like the Milankovitch cycles are important in the average temperature of the Earth. And there's a piece of them that's true that like, yes, plants do need CO2 to thrive. But then they take that little piece and then they stretch it out over this like giant argument that it does not actually contain.
Yeah.
It's false by over extrapolation. Like, yes, the sun impacts the Earth's temperature. But when they say the only thing that impacts the Earth temperature is the sun, therefore man-caused climate change cannot be true. Like, that's using a thing that's true to make a false statement.
Yeah.
And that, in that way, yes, all these arguments are false arguments.
Yeah, exactly. And again, a lot of these are things that came up in the Great Global Warming Swindle and were debunked. And can you believe he's doing the thing with the graphs again?
You know what this is, I think?
What?
This is like Taylor's version. And so if you're not familiar, Taylor Swift recorded a bunch of songs but didn't own the master copy of the song. And so a few years later, she re-recorded all of those songs and called it Taylor's version. And now she can like release all those songs. It's like Martin Durkin somehow didn't have the copyright on the Great Global Warming Swindle and was like, I'm going to make Martin's version and this is it.
Yes. And for those of you who didn't listen to It's the Sun, Stupid, there's a whole long clip of this Australian show where they invite Martin Durkin on and they just excoriate him. And they're like, so all of your graphs are wrong.
Why didn't you just continue that graph on to the present day? Because there are graphs available which do that.
Well, firstly, the graph that we were using was created by Professor Friis Christensen from the Danish Space Agency. So it would have been completely I can't remember off the top of my head.
25 years ago.
Yeah, and it was in a period where a part of the program where we're talking about, it was a historical part of the program where we're talking about key discoveries in the history of, recent history of climatology.
Shall I tell you what happens
Entirely.
after 1980? The temperature continues to rise very sharply. Solar activity falls off in the other direction. Now, that would have been very hard to explain in your film, wouldn't it, if you'd actually used the modern data?
Well, I mean, the graph that we used from Fries Christensen was the graph that he published in a very famous paper that sort of came out and was in part of the program that we were talking about the history of people's understanding of what the solar effects might have been on the temperature of the 20th century.
The section, as you say, is based on his work, but when he and his colleagues saw your graphs and the way in which you'd use them in the program, they felt compelled to correct you. They wrote this, that their latest studies had explicitly concluded that after 1985, temperature continued to rise, just as I said, while the sunspot cycle length flattened out and thus no longer correlated with surface temperature. And they went on to say this point was not included in the narrator's statement.
And you should go listen to the episode because there's more detail in there. But they point out all of the ways his graphs are either misleading, straight up falsified, the way that he's manipulated data in weird ways, and he's done almost the exact same thing in this new movie. There's a lot of graphs in here that don't have a label on the y-axis. There's a lot of graphs in here that say that they go until now, but they only go until 2010 or in some cases 2000, which, as you may have noticed, is not now.
What was now for the old documentary?
Yeah, exactly, but not now. And to show you what I'm talking about, let's take a look at this clip.
And here it is, the Roman Warm Period, the Cold Dark Age, the Medieval Warm Period, and then the very cold Little Ice Age, from which, for the past 300 years or so, we've been recovering.
Okay, so first of all, the title of the graph is just 2,000 years.
2,000 years. Look, short and sweet.
It's a graph of 2,000 years.
So we get this graph, we see temperature anomaly on the y-axis, and basically it's got a couple of little spikes and drops, and the beginning of the graph and the end of the graph, which is marked current, are pretty similar. So it doesn't seem to spike or dip too much. Exactly.
And it is interesting that the end of the graph is marked current. Can you tell me what's on the x-axis?
Sure. I guess it's 2000 is the last time.
It goes from year one,
not zero,
1 to 2000. You may have noticed, but this movie came out in 2024.
Sure.
And 2024 isn't 2000.
No, it's a quarter of a century past 2000.
Yeah. Now, what do you think happened in the temperature record in the past 24 years?
Well, I imagine it must have been flat.
No, actually, weirdly, that's not what happened. And Dutch journalist Martin Koelemans has a really good thread on Twitter, which we'll link in the show notes, where he debunks this entire documentary. And he has this graph, and he updates to what this graph should look like if you incorporate temperature records up to now. Can you describe what you're seeing here?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a massive spike in temperature that is much, much further than any of the spikes or dips for the past 2,000 years. Sorry, 1,999 years. Well, Nicole, I mean, it takes a lot to make a movie. You know, you got to get your graphs, you got to check them, and sometimes you're going to just slip through the cracks.
But here's the thing. This is the same graph that he fucked up in the Great Global Warming Swindle and went on Australian TV, and they were like, you did it wrong. We talked to Lundquist, who published this graph, and said, you did it wrong. This is wrong.
I think what Martin is thinking is, well, this time I won't go on Australian TV.
Fool me once.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is, I would say, beyond intentionally misleading and like dipping a toe, maybe up to his knee, into outright lying.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a lie by omission.
Yeah.
Which my girlfriend keeps reminding me is a thing.
And this isn't the only one. Like, let's take a look at this other clip starring our good friend, astrophysicist Willie Soon.
Because IPCC is determined to go on a narrative that only CO2 can drive the climate system, they turn off the sun essentially, right?
Spider-Man, turn off the sun.
Also, the IPCC doesn't say that only CO2 can control climate. They very famously talk about other things.
Yeah, and don't they like rely on a lot of IPCC information for this documentary?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Because the sun is just a background thing for them, that it doesn't do anything.
Astrophysicist Willie Soon decided to look again at the rural temperature record for the past 150 years.
Decided to look again.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
What could have motivated him to do that?
I thought he already figured it out. Why is he consistently deciding to rediscover the same thing?
It's Tuesday. Better go look at this graph again.
It might have changed.
Then he looked at a record of changes in solar activity over the same period. To Dr. Soon, it was obvious that it was the sun, not CO2, that was driving temperature.
So what they've just displayed is another kind of well-stylized, hand-drawn graph. I mean, I'll give them credit. Like, they're keeping a consistent artistic visual.
One thing that I do like is the styling of the graphs.
This is...
I don't like the accuracy of them, but just the way that they're visualized.
Yeah. I also like whoever edited this edited the fuck out of this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm seeing there's like cuts and dissolves. There's hundreds of different like stock clips zooming in and out at all times. The stuff like animates nicely. I mean, good job, editor. For real. For real. If you're the editor, well done. All right. So we're seeing a hand-drawn graph that's sun and temperature. The y-axis is total solar irradiance, and the x-axis is years. So it goes from 1880 to, I guess, 2021. We see temperature in blue, and it's sort of going up. And then we see sun in red, and it's sort of going up at a pretty similar kind of clip as the temperature.
Yes. And once again, this is misleading. A writer named Gavin Schmidt found that...
The director of NASA Goddard Institute for Space Studies.
Wow. Okay, fine. Got to high road me on that one. Fine. Dr. Gavin Schmidt of NASA says that this whole graph is cherry picked. He says that Soon's research relies on like measuring stations in weird places that he's selected specifically to support his research. So like, sure, the graph itself looks compelling, but the data behind it is not.
And I will note that like at the end of the graph around the year 2000, the sun goes down and the temperature keeps going up. And it's like, well, don't look at that. Don't look at that part. Come on, like, look at the rest of it. The rest of it's so good, though.
Yeah. And so a lot of the arguments in here are ones that we've already talked about and already debunked, both here and on Australian television. But they also introduce some, topics that are new to the podcast. Willie Soon was just talking about the rural temperature record. A big focus of this documentary is around something called the urban heat island effect. And this is like a pretty good example of how Martin Durkin misrepresents partially true things to support suspect conclusions. So let's listen to how this documentary talks about a real phenomenon known as the urban heat island effect.
Professor Ross McKittrick is an expert in statistical analysis at Guelph University.
Guelph.
This
is a goblin university.
He noticed something odd about modern thermometer records. Thermometers, even in the same region, give out very different readings, depending on where they're located.
I was interested in the question of how do you explain the spatial pattern of warming? So some places warm a lot, some places don't warm much. And it turns out it's highly correlated with the spatial pattern of economic activity.
Where there are more people and there is more human activity, there's more heat.
I will quickly note that the areas where there's the most warming are the poles. So
we'll talk about that.
Okay, cool. It's just like the economic activity that's happening there, I guess, is Santa Claus's workshop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, he's big business. Now, the South Pole, unsure what they're producing or selling there. Maybe it's knowledge work.
I think it's like sort of big baggy shirts and hats.
This is known as the urban heat island effect.
Urban heat island effect is essentially London, right? You pick London. With buildings, with a lot of activities, tends to be a few degrees. I mean, we're talking now Celsius, right? Even 4 or 5 degrees Celsius warmer than outskirts. This is a phenomenon of urbanization. These days, the obvious effect is actually concrete retaining heat.
This can be illustrated with a satellite heat map of Paris. The center of Paris can be as much as 5 degrees Celsius warmer than the surrounding countryside. So how has this affected the official temperature record? In the early part of the 20th century, it was normal to erect weather thermometers just outside towns, close enough to check every day, but away from the heat of urban life. But over the 20th century, those towns have expanded. Suburbs have spread. There are more roads, more cars. Thermometers which were once outside towns are now surrounded by shopping malls, offices, factories, and houses. To correct for this corruption of the data, an obvious solution is to use only records from rural weather stations, which have been less affected by urban development. This has now been done by a team led by Dr. Willie Soon.
We combine all the best rural station, anything that we can correct for, we correct for. And we show, if you just don't use this data set and use only rural, you get a very different kind of picture.
So again, he's just straight up saying, like, we cherry-picked the stations that we thought would work best for us. So their argument is basically like there is this phenomenon known as the urban heat island effect where urban centers are warmer, and by continuing to measure the temperature there as the cities have grown, you're going to see like false indications that the whole world is getting warmer when it's really just like urbanization is causing the urban heat island effect. One thing I want to say real quick is the way they describe the urban heat island effect, I'm not going to say it's wrong, and I don't think they're trying to be misleading. I think they just kind of cut it together in a way that it doesn't really clarify why the urban heat island effect happens. Like, they say that it's increased areas of economic activity and where there's more people moving around and stuff. And to me, that implies that's like, well, when you get a bunch of people together, all they're moving around in body heat and stuff is going to make things
Nicole.
hot.
It's hot as a pistol.
And Willie Soon is the one who says that it's concrete is causing a lot of it. And that's more correct. It's like the materials that are used to build cities retain a lot of heat. There's not as much tree cover, which like helps manage heat. There's not as much water from plants, which helps manage heat. So the urban heat island effect is real, and it is a problem that particularly like urban planners think about a lot because as climate change worsens, like it's going to be a big problem because more and more people are moving to cities. But their contention is that this urban heat island effect is making us think that global warming is happening when it's not.
Right. This is another classic instance of like climate scientists know about the urban heat island effect and they already correct for it. And then these fucking guys find out about it, are like, oh, got you. And climate scientists are like, got us what? It's the exact same thing that happened with the Milankovitch cycles of the sun, where like every climate model takes all of that into account because climate scientists fucking figured that out. They were the ones to tell you about it. And then they're like, oh, so this is what you guys have been using to hide all the climate change that's not happening. It galls me.
Yeah, and just to like tie a bow on it and show that like the urban heat island effect is like not this big gotcha that they think it is. An article in Bloomberg showed that several studies have been done on this, and surprisingly, this really surprised me. Perhaps the most compelling of these studies was funded in part by the Koch brothers.
Of course.
And was participated in by some notable climate denier scientists. And they didn't go so far as to say this, but I think it's like pretty fair to assume that, you know, it was in the hopes that they could prove that climate change isn't happening. And they got the opposite results. And this is called the Berkeley Earth Surface Temperature Project, or BEST.
Oh, that's fun.
Which I like. And according to Bloomberg, it compared temperature trends at thousands of rural and urban sites around the world. The study team found that the trends matched well, the opposite of what one should expect if urban heat island effect was adding anomalous warming to the record. They conclude that urban warming does not unduly bias estimates of recent global temperature change.
I mean, it makes total sense that this was a study commissioned by people who were trying to prove that the urban heat island effect was this big gotcha.
Yeah.
And then they found out it wasn't. So my problem now is that this is a debunked thing, right? Like, oh yeah, if we cut out a bunch of the cities and we just sort of cherry pick a couple of different stations that we get to pick, we can make the data look like it agrees with our conclusion.
Right.
But when you look at the Bloomberg study, which debunks that and really unwrap, because this is kind of what they're pinning their whole argument on, that like, oh, actually all these temperature records, they're wrong. The temperature really isn't rising.
Yeah.
But when you debunk that, it's like, no, the temperature is rising. Here's all the data. Then they don't stop.
Yes.
They're like, nuh-uh. And that's not how you do science.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you were saying before, they're also just wrong about where the temperature is increasing the most.
Yeah.
This is from Skeptical Science, where they're talking about the different ways to kind of like address the urban heat island effect when you're doing climate calculations. And they say another way to explore the UHI, urban heat island effect, would be to look at where the majority of warming has occurred across the globe. The UHI should match where most people live. However, if you look at the 2006 global temperature anomaly, you find that the greatest difference in temperatures for the long-term averages were across Russia, Alaska, far north Canada, and Greenland, and not where major urbanization has occurred.
Well, that's very rude to Greenland, Nicole. They're trying their frickin' best.
They're melting the ice sheets as fast as they can.
Look, we're shoveling coal into these furnaces to get this damn snow out of here. And here you are coming down on them like a ton of bricks just because their economic activity isn't as good as Paris.
Well, maybe if they made some damn baguettes.
Wow. That sounded hateful.
Shots,
I know none
shots
of that was
fired, Greenland. So anyway, the urban heat island effect is just one of the many arguments that are thrown at you in an 80-minute video. And in order to like really debunk the whole movie, we would have to go through every single one of those arguments. And so like if you're just a person...
And so here we go.
And so if you're just a person like watching this, trying to like tease out what's true and what isn't, that's hard to do.
Sure.
You know, it's just a lot of arguments and are overwhelming. Most people just don't have the time and resources. And these guys are astrophysicists and Nobel winners, and they teach at NYU and they play the piano. So you may as well trust them. But
I mean, that does feel compelling. Just hearing you say that. They're astrophysicists with Nobel Prizes in physics who teach at prestigious universities. Mm-hmm. They seem like the kind of people that, all other things being equal, you should trust what they have to say. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why this is so compelling, because they have accolades. Other people say that they are smart. And so, like, I guess I'm not a climate scientist. I'll listen to what this presumably climate science guy has to say. But they're not really climate science guys.
Yeah. It seems like they should know what they're talking about. And they're not just going out of their field to make these climate science arguments. They're also making a lot of like kind of conspiracy arguments too.
Which are fun.
And it makes you wonder like what kind of an axe these guys have to grind, guys and two women. And this is sort of where it diverges from the 2007 film. That one was much more, I asked Canute, our researcher, to take on the psychic damage of watching the first one to confirm this. So sorry, Canute. But he watched the first one to confirm that there wasn't this kind of conspiracy and control element to that first documentary. This one is a lot more like I've been shunned for my incorrect beliefs. And you see that it's like just a different kind of argument. And while more respectable climate deniers have pivoted to delay, the crackpots have pivoted to like they're trying to control us.
Yeah, I guess that would make sense, where it's like we feel like we're being disrespected in our field for just asking questions. And I think I can empathize with that if you were asking any new questions. All the questions that you're asking, they're like, we heard you. Here's the answer to that. But they're like, but why does CO2 seem to lag temperature in the Antarctic ice cores? And they're like, no, we already told you that. It's because it's a positive feedback loop with some complex mechanisms. And those are just the ice core samples we have at the poles. And now that it's post-industrial, it's like leading temperature. But they're like, but why does CO2? It's like, no. We don't have to respect
It's that
these
Zoolander
questions.
thing of him being like, but why male models? Yeah. And David Duchovny's like, are you serious? I just told you that.
David Duchovny is so handsome that it didn't make sense that he was the unhandsome guy in that movie.
That is true.
I didn't buy it. It's like having Margot Robbie be Barbie, and they're like, oh, I'm feeling old. It's like, what? You're the hottest woman in the world. What's happening?
They had their cake and ate it too by calling it out in the narration.
That's true.
Yeah. And so the first maybe 2/3 of the movie is kind of like about the scientific basis for their arguments, but the last third really leans almost entirely on their feelings of rejection and like their personal freedoms are being impinged on. So let's take a look at some clips of what I'm talking about.
Among the largely publicly funded Western intelligentsia, support for more government spending and regulation is almost a defining moral badge. In these circles, to question the climate alarm is socially unacceptable. To be a climate skeptic is taboo.
Somebody that goes against it really does get met with a lot of anger and vitriol, and you're called a denier, a science denier, and a heretic.
Your colleagues won't engage with you anymore. You don't get invited to conferences. Your students may desert you.
Every year, my students desert me. It feels like in May of every single year, my students leave. Sorry, that's not. I mean, I don't mean to belittle this man's.
I do.
This is one of the rare moments of vulnerability that we see out of these guys.
Yeah, where they're like they've dug in on this because they got their feelings hurt because somebody like us with a little podcast was like, "You're stupid. This is stupid."
Yeah, I mean So I think the same thing happened with J.K. Rowling, where she's like, "I'm a feminist and I'm an incredible author." As you can tell from look, you don't think I'm an incredible author? My castle of a house begs to differ. I was richer than the queen at one point. Obviously, I'm really smart, great at writing, great feminist. And then she says some disparaging things about trans people. And somebody's like, hey, what you said is a little bit ignorant. And let me just describe why it's ignorant. And then she sees that as a challenge to her being a good author or being a smart person. And instead of being able to listen, she's been so rich and powerful and talented for so long, she just assumes that the person who's telling her this is wrong and that she's right, because that assumption has held so many times over the past 20 years. And then she just triples down on trans exclusionary radical feminism. And then now she just splits off from progressive politics, and she's just dug herself this trench that I don't think she can get out of without completely rewriting her personality.
Yeah, totally. And funny you should bring up transphobia, because would you believe we're going to watch a clip pretty soon that touches on that a little bit too.
Really? In this movie?
Yeah.
Holy shit, I totally missed that.
Just a little bit.
Okay.
But yes, I think that's totally it. I think these guys, and they are largely guys, are unwilling to be challenged, and so they've just kind of dug in their heels. They are clearly concerned about their loss of prestige.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I would be too. You know, you go through your whole life, you're this prize-winning physicist, and you're very well respected by all your colleagues because you have a fucking Nobel Prize, and people think you're really smart, and then you just sort of go down this path a little bit of the way. People are like, oh yeah, actually, here's a bunch of data that says that's not true. But you're like, no, here's some data that says it is true. And they're like, well, here's way more data that says it's not true. And you're like, I'm going to find the data that says it is true. And this one little split just creates this culture of I have to be right. I have to find evidence that proves my thesis correct. And so that leads them to cherry pick and throw out all the temperature stations that don't agree with them and just pick the temperature stations that do. And of course, they're going to keep going down this path. All their colleagues are going to be like, this guy is not doing science right anymore.
Yeah.
And they're, of course, incapable of pulling back because they've been right their whole lives. And it's just really sad to see this guy my colleagues don't respect me. I don't get to go to conferences. And it's I feel you, man. Just get a little more perspective and try to see what's going on in the world around you.
Yes. And when you're stuck in that place, it can be really hard to see other people who you particularly regard as more junior than you start to succeed at a thing that you just have dug in your heels on being wrong, that you fundamentally think is the opposite of what you're doing and wrong. And these guys definitely have a bone to pick about that, as you will see right here.
Until the 1980s, global warming was little more than an eccentric scare story put about by radical environmentalists.
I love that sentence. radical environmentalists, including Exxon's chief scientist, all the climate scientists that Exxon hired and employed, just James Hansen.
There's another part in this documentary that we're not going to watch the clip, but they're like, environmentalists like to pose as anti-establishment. And I'm like, what are you talking about? No.
Hey, we should cut down fewer trees. You fucking radical.
Until the 1980s, global warming was little more than an eccentric scare story put about by radical environmentalists. But then the cause was picked up by an ambitious young senator, Al Gore, who would soon become vice president. $1 billion a year of public money was made available for research into climate change. This quickly rose to $2 billion.
Up to that level.
Academic researchers in various disciplines began to apply for this climate funding.
If you want to qualify for money that's labeled climate, well, you take whatever you're doing and you add a little bit of climate speak to it, and away you go.
You're dealing with the sexual habits of cockroaches. You'll add, and the impact of climate.
So all I have to do is add a little wrinkle to my grant application to explain how, well, I'm worried that climate change will mean the death of all the maple trees. And so right away you qualify for funding.
Academics of every kind lined up for climate funding. Climate became an exciting new area of interest for sociologists, biologists, professors of English literature, lecturers in gender studies, and many more.
Not even professors in gender studies.
It is both a little bit of transphobia and also a weird inside baseball academic dig where it's like, you're a lecturer, not a full professor. And to clarify, like, while they're listing all of these other kinds of academics who they clearly don't respect, there's these little drawings of like what these people look like and that are like a little bit denigrating.
Yeah, and then the last one, the lecturer in gender studies, is somebody who obviously presents as a man, has a big bushy beard, but also like kind of a top ponytail and wearing what looks like a floral dress with unshaven legs and Birkenstocks and holding a book that's got like the female and the male gender symbol at the same time.
Yeah, it's just a little casual transphobia to tip that off. And so this is like what they're like all in their feelings about is like all these losers who aren't even doing important work or getting funding because they are saying it's about climate.
While I was watching this, I was wondering, like, where is this coming from? Is this at all accurate? Was there like a giant pot of money that if you said climate in your research, you would get some of that money?
So I like don't know. I don't totally know what he's talking about because when you get into the back half of this documentary, we're totally out of chart land. All the crazy charts that he doctored and kept referring to ad nauseum in the first half have disappeared. And this really feels like we're in the land of pure conjecture. But I had our researchers kind of look into this. And again, because these guys are making sort of a vibes-based argument and not a very strong evidence-based argument, it's like hard to find evidence in the other direction.
Yeah, it's like prove people aren't thinking about Michael Jordan 10% more, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like basically everything else in this movie, this argument takes something that is true, which is that there has been more money going to climate research since we learned what climate change is and that it's bad, which is like, yeah, duh. Like, imagine being in Japan and being like, I'm worried that before World War II, we weren't doing any Godzilla research. But then once Godzilla emerged from the ocean, now we're doing all this Godzilla research?
This is so ignorant of me. I sort of thought Godzilla was like part of the Japanese canon from the way back times.
Wow.
But now I'm understanding that it's probably a
It's a
World
metaphor
War II
about
metaphor.
Mass trauma after the atom bombs.
Wow.
Yeah, or at least, I mean, maybe there was some iteration of Godzilla before that, but post World War II, at the very least, it is like he eats
Before
nuclear
World
weapons.
War II,
Yeah.
it was non-theologically specific supreme being Zilla.
Anyway, these guys like twist the fact that because we know about climate change and are concerned about it, so we're researching it more, into this conspiracy that now we're putting all of this money into something.
And if you're a gender studies lecturer, you
Yes.
can just get a $5 million grant if you throw climate change into your like who is wearing more sequins study. I don't know.
Is that what you think happens in gender studies
I was
lectures?
really trying to thread the needle there, and I just couldn't do it.
Embodying their perspective without being accidentally offensive in the impression of them.
I was trying to make a riff from the perspective of the climate, the movie, The Cold Truth, that wouldn't be that offensive, but would be wrong-headed.
Yeah.
And I think I got close.
I mean, I think you did a great job.
Thank you. 10 sequins for Nicole.
Thank you. And I think it's important to note that this part of the film like doesn't really support its claims very well. Not that the rest of the film is supporting its claims very well, but at least they offered like bad evidence.
Yeah, they got graphs and they cite a source here and there.
Exactly. But here we're like well out of chart town and fully into like conjecture and seemingly personal vendetta territory. And that's pretty crazy because like research funding is something that just fundamentally has a number attached to it in the form of a dollar amount. So you'd think that that would be relatively easy for them to make some effort to show this trend that they're talking about.
Show us a paper that shouldn't have gotten funded that got funded because it said climate change.
Yeah, which
even
is crazy.
One.
They don't even point to a specific one, and they definitely don't point to a trend over time. So it seems like either Durkin and friends either just didn't feel like looking into it, or maybe did and didn't like what they found.
Or, okay, come on, Nicole. Maybe they ran out of time. Maybe it was hard to find the information and they gave up.
You know, Rollie,
maybe it didn't look good on the frame. Maybe it didn't, because those graphs look nice.
Yeah.
In the back 38 minutes, no graphs or charts. My theory is they have them all. They just didn't look good, so they didn't add them.
Sure. Well, whether it's that the charts didn't look good or simply that Durkin didn't like what he found, here's what I found. So in a peer-reviewed journal called Energy Research and Social Science, in 2019, they published a piece called The Misallocation of Climate Research Funding.
Uh-oh. Smoking gun much?
Well, the title makes it really sound like we're misallocating our funds to climate research. But would you believe that the study actually indicates the opposite?
What?
It actually indicates that maybe we're not allocating enough money towards climate research and to the social sciences specifically.
Clickbait title. Love it. Scientists hate him.
So this analysis basically looked at competitive research grant funding. And this is competitive funding, so like the kind of stuff that you have to apply for and compete against other proposals and stuff, which is the claim that they're making in this documentary, which is that you're more likely to get funding if you say that your bullshit is climate related. And so it analyzed everything that they could find after 1950, and they specifically were looking at the percentage of funding that went to hard sciences versus social sciences. And when they were looking at the data, they were like, okay, well, there was basically zero social science funding related to climate change before 1990. We found literally no examples of it. So they did their more thorough analysis, breaking down funding post 1990, and this is what they found. So their study makes a bunch of observations, and one of them is, quote, "The second observation is how little funding has gone into research on climate change overall since 1990, regardless of discipline. Depending on which search string one uses," which means like the combination of words that they use to see whether a grant was related to climate change, climate research accounted for between 2.38 and 4.59% of the total amount of research funding during the period from 1990 to 2018. The higher estimate errs on the high side. Very few projects that are really about climate change would not include any of the 89 keywords in the long search string, whereas numerous projects that happen to mention one of those words may not really be about climate change. So what we're talking about, this is for hard and soft sciences, is the absolute maximum amount of total grant funding is still under 5% of total competitive grants being allocated to climate change research.
Damn. Yeah, and seeing a little bit of an uptick makes a lot of sense there, right? Mm-hmm. Climate change is introduced to the general population around 1988, so we would expect to see more than 0% of the grant funding going to it.
Yeah.
But these are not gotcha numbers. This is not 50% of the funding.
It's 5% of all the funding.
Less than 5 at the absolute max. Less than 5% of the funding has the word climate in it. You could do a fucking study about M&M colors, and if you have the word like in this political climate, red, white, and blue M&Ms are, and like it's possible that would have triggered the string.
Yeah, I didn't break down their models specifically, but that is possible. And again, to this point about like gender studies lecturers getting all of this climate change money.
Well, that part is true though.
Rollie, would you believe that according to the study, quote, hardly any social science research was conducted on climate change before 1990. And from 1990 to 2018, the natural and physical sciences received a total of $40 billion compared to only $4.6 billion for the social sciences and humanities, based on the means of the short and long string search results. In other words, according to our estimates, the natural and technical sciences received around 770% more funding than the social sciences and humanities for research on climate change. And Rollie, just in case $40 billion and $4.6 billion sound like a lot of money to you,
which they do,
you have to remember that is over the entire time span of 1990 to when this study began its process in 2018. At the same time, the total competitive research funding for that same time period is $327.5 billion.
Yeah, and that's also not even considering the argument that they're making, which is none of that funding would have been allocated to any of these studies if they hadn't tacked on climate to the study.
Right.
So, like, it's not only a minuscule percent of the ruling class, but it's also not taking into account this argument that they're sort of cheating their way into it. Mm-hmm. I don't see them present any evidence for these studies would not have been funded and these studies are funded now. And it's because they said climate that they didn't really give a shit about.
We talked a little bit earlier about how a lot of these guys are physicists and how like the ways that their brains have evolved to be physicists like make them not take other disciplines seriously. And I think that this is like a very good example of that. And you can hear it in the disdain with which they discuss other people's disciplines. And it's not even just the humanities. There's this one guy who's like, yeah, if you are studying the mating habits of cockroaches and you say that climate change is going to change them, then you get funding. And it's like he thinks there's no value in studying the ways that a pest reproduces.
Yeah, that's a great point. Where like the cockroach is the bellwether for if we've had a nuclear holocaust and how well things are going to survive.
Like, what are you talking about? Just because you're not, discussing the physics of the Big Bang doesn't mean that your discipline isn't actually much more useful to our real lives.
Yeah, that's a great point.
It's just wild that they're so dismissive of all of these other fields of study. And also, like, I don't want to come off as if I'm anti-humanities here. I've been banging the humanities drum for a long time.
I was so curious where that sentence was going to go.
I've been banging my humanities teacher for a long time. But actually, there are many compelling arguments to be made for why we should be putting money into humanities research if we're going to take climate change seriously. From that same study, the misallocation of climate research funding, they point out that the funding of climate research appears to be based on the assumption that if natural scientists work out the causes, impacts, and technological remedies of climate change, then politicians, officials, and citizens will spontaneously change their behavior to tackle the problem. The past decades have shown that this assumption does not hold. Although the natural and technical sciences often generate results that are or perceived to be clearer and more concrete than the social sciences, they cannot handle issue areas such as attitudes, norms, incentives, and politics that are intrinsically social. And I think that's 100% true. If we're going to change our behavior at the scale that we have to address climate change, we have to get humanities researchers involved.
Nicole, I would agree with you, except for climate change is a big fat hoax. Capital H, capital X, the number 0 for the O, @ for the A.
Wow.
And I guess like, I think all of the things that we would probably naturally want to talk about, like defending the humanities, because obviously we're already fighting this losing battle on their terms because they don't believe in climate change at all.
Yeah.
And so like if climate change is fake, then we don't need to learn how societies function better because our society is functioning great right now. Okay? We're fucking killing it. There's no climate change. And the biggest problem we have is that the woke mind virus is turning all the frogs gay and making all of my colleagues not invite me to their wine parties. And I really want to go to those because I got some really important things I want to yell at them.
Is there any greater punishment than not being able to ruin your colleagues' get-togethers
If
with
there
your
is.
awful personality? I think what else this argument ignores is all of the money that fossil fuel interests have pumped into research and given directly to people who are willing to deny climate change.
Yeah. And also, like, this is such a old argument that even the fossil fuel companies are starting to leave these guys behind.
Totally.
And like that, it's kind of a crazy evolution that fossil fuel companies are funding like research at Princeton and research at Yale to like figure out carbon capture and just
Which,
these
by the
delay
way, still
techniques.
like isn't great.
Oh, no. Yeah. I'm not. Hang on, Nicole. You didn't let me finish. And I love it. And I think it's great. No, I mean, that's not great, but it's just like a different tack on how to like delay climate policy. But these guys are still like, doesn't exist, fake news.
If
like,
any
not
of these
happening.
guys had been able to actually compellingly prove that climate change wasn't real, ExxonMobil would have given them $1 billion with a B.
Yeah, tax free. You get a board seat. Can you imagine the profitability there is in proving that climate change is fake?
Yeah, it's enormous. It is enormous. And
The auto industry.
Yeah.
The fucking fossil fuel industry. The plastic industry.
yes.
How is it like everything would be like, thank you, Craig. Here's your golden shirt, you know?
Yeah. And if you want to know some idea of how much money the fossil fuel industry is putting into research that they have a vested interest in, according to Philanthropy News Daily, between 2011 and 2023, fossil fuel companies contributed over $68 million to sponsored research in departments housed in the Doerr School of Sustainability at Stanford. And that's just at one school, $68 million over the course of 12 years. Amy Westervelt, who is a wonderful climate researcher who has her own podcast called Drilled that I highly recommend you check out.
Drilled.
She wrote an article in The Guardian in March of last year and said that fossil fuel companies donated $700 million to U.S. universities over 10 years. So again, if any of these research grants could have found that these fossil fuel companies can keep polluting with no climate issues, they would have been pumped about that. But even the fossil fuel companies are like, okay, let's just fund research about like bullshit carbon capture instead. Because they know that this ship has sailed.
Yeah, they left these guys behind and they're like on this island kind of still using the same protest signs that they were using in 2007. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like these guys seem smart. Like fucking find a new hobby, man. Like what's going on?
And even taking it outside of the official like research funding, like Willie Soon, star of this documentary and frequent appearer on this podcast, he's accepted over $1 million from fossil fuel companies.
$1 million.
$1 million for one guy. So it's not like there's no money to be had in denying climate science. And it's not like researching climate science is some huge cash cow.
Yeah, I mean, there is this myth that scientists and climate scientists specifically are able to enrich themselves from all this government money that's being pumped in. But I know a bunch of climate scientists, and they're not like rich people. Yeah. They're regular scientists, and these big ticket grants that people are like, wow, $7 million for this grant. Like that's over 3 years, and it goes to fund like a team of 15 researchers, and they also have to buy all their own supplies. And that grant, like that money doesn't go to the scientist. That goes to the university. It gets allocated in a way that's extremely well documented.
Yeah.
And the scientist makes their fucking university salary.
Yeah.
These are not rich, gambling, hard drinking dudes.
Yes, this is a really good point. And we actually found this great clip of Katharine Hayhoe.
Katharine Hayhoe. Dr. Hayhoe.
Who's wonderful. And she breaks down how a $1 million grant ultimately is accounted for and doesn't leave a ton of room for fun discretionary spending. It's like a 7-minute clip, so we won't play it now, but it's in the show notes. You should check it out.
Hey. Ho. Da, 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 da. Yeah. Lumineers, baby.
Were you
Denver.
Were you thinking of that riff the entire time I was talking?
I don't know what you mean. I refuse to dignify that with a response. No, Dr. Heiho is a real deal, very serious, and
she's great,
top tier climate communicator,
really, really good. So check out the show notes for that. So there's this whole
Oh.
Okay, so that is one of the new elements of this movie compared to the old one, is this argument about like research funding. But the other bigger focus of this movie is something that we talked about in the 15-Minute Cities episode, which is it's not about climate, it's about control.
It's about control. They know it's fake.
Yeah.
They know it's fake. They just want to control you.
Yeah, it's this climate versus freedom thing. And I made our researcher Canute watch the entire first movie to confirm that this isn't really an element of that first movie. And it does seem to be like maybe not a totally new train of thought, but a much heavier focus in this one. And to give you an idea of what it sounds like, here's a clip that really illustrates their climate versus freedom point.
Environmentalists like to pose as anti-establishment, but their demands are well received and piously echoed by King Charles and the Archbishop of Canterbury, the BBC, the UN, the EU, by heads of government, the World Bank and World Economic Forum. In fact, by the entire state-funded ruling establishment.
Global warming is like the perfect problem that government can get involved in to grow the influence of government.
It's a wonderful way to increase government power. And if there's an existential threat out there that's worldwide, well, you need a powerful worldwide government, to cope with it.
If you're a climate activist, you're actually facilitating a huge validation of the government running our lives.
Many environmentalists, most environmentalists, all environmentalists who consider themselves to be radical, progressive alternatives are in fact simply reinforcing the mantras and the mainstream arguments of the entire establishment.
The demands on the government mean that the government suddenly gains the authority to interfere into every nook and cranny of our lives and how we live.
Everything has a climate narrative attached to it. How much you consume, where you spend your money, how much you travel, who you interact with, what types of food you eat, whether you eat meat. Everything has some sort of aspect that can be controlled with a climate lens.
It's this spirit of fear-mongering with even like the spooky music in the background. One thing I want to point out, we've joked about how there's not really women in this documentary. This is one of the few clips that feature a woman. And I saw her lower third and I was like, what the fuck? Her lower third is Baroness Fox of Buckley, Academy of Ideas.
That is like a thing I would come out on stage in an improv set with you and I would say, hello.
I'm the Baroness Fox of Buckley of the Academy of Ideas. From the Academy website, quote, Claire Fox is the director of the Academy of Ideas, which she established to create a public space where ideas can be contested without constraint. And she convenes the yearly Battle of Ideas Festival and initiated the Debating Matters competition for sixth formers, which are like their version of like juniors and seniors, I think. And it just reminds me, Michael Hobbs of the If Books Could Kill podcast and several other podcasts has this quote on Twitter where he's like, quote, why won't you debate? It's such a perfect distillation of the dumb guy's idea of a smart guy ideology that has taken over American culture. No effort to discover the truth, understand the research, or listen to experts. Just the hollow fetishization of counterintuitive ideas and endless argument.
Wow. I love Michael Hobbs.
He's so good. So good.
Can I just say that this part about like freedom, right? Mm-hmm. It rests on two completely conflicting concepts. That number one, the government is so strong that it's capable of tricking every member of the press, the academic ruling class, all the rich people, the king, all this stuff. They're all in league. They're all in cahoots together, but they can't get anything done. They have made zero progress on their stated goals. And they've also made zero progress on taking over everyone's lives and like actually, like we consume more meat today than we ever have. Yeah. Which is like the fucking one of the linchpin arguments of these people. They're trying to take your meat away. It's like, they're not trying to take your meat away. you're eating more meat than you've ever eaten in your life. What are you talking about?
It's wild. I don't think they say it in here, but it's like related to they're going to make you eat bugs, and which is like an 8-year-old's idea of how to torture somebody.
Yeah. I mean, even if like bug protein probably going to be very helpful, like the whole animal agriculture industry is kind of careening off the brink right now. Like it's using too much water. It's polluting it. Like there are problems.
It's spreading fucking diseases aside from climate change.
Yeah.
It's like we're all going to get fucking swine flu.
There are lots of problems with the rapid acceleration of our consumption.
And it's not just related to meat, by the way. That is the funniest point to me because it's so easy to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But like everything that they're saying about control is bullshit. And we talk about it a lot in the 15-Minute Cities episode. And I would encourage you to go listen to that because our other researcher, Carly, did a really good breakdown of like the timeline of how this argument has grown. And it's just not true. And one thing that really bothers me about it is that they're acting like we have total freedom now and not that our entire reality, particularly in America, has been created by oil companies and car companies.
Yeah.
The ways that we're not free are simply not legally encoded. Like they're like in almost every part of the country, you're not free to not own a car.
Or like you're practically not, like it is so massively infeasible to not own a car that you might as well be not free to do.
Have you tried to use no plastic? Are you free to not use any plastic? I physically can't make that choice in my day-to-day life.
Yeah. I mean, like there's a version of it where it's like, oh, you don't want to use plastic? Live in a fucking tree. Become a Keebler elf, you know, like that doesn't feel like the right solution.
Yeah. Just because the government isn't making you do something doesn't mean that you're not functionally being made to do something.
Yeah.
And through these massive, massive subsidies that our governments have given to these companies for decades, it's created a reality where like my parents can't choose to walk to their grocery store because I guess they could, but they're getting older and would have to walk for 2 hours to get to the grocery store. And I just don't see that as being an actual choice that they have, you know?
Hey, you know what? Take it up with the Foundation for Ideas.
The Academy of
Ideas,
Rollie. And this kind of like freedom versus control aspect of things is an element of Martin Durkin's work, even though it wasn't as much of a feature in The Great Global Warming Swindle. He has made other documentaries, including Brexit the Movie in 2016. Brexit the Movie, based on the novel Push by Sapphire. And there's this review of this movie in Vice, RIP Vice, when you were still doing interesting stuff, by this guy Sam Criss. And he has a really good quote that applies to Brexit the Movie, but I think also specifically like elucidates this viewpoint as relates to like climate change and like they're gonna make you live in a 15-minute city, and if you leave your zone they'll kill you. And so this is the quote from Sam Criss in his review of Brexit the Movie, the novel. Quote, "Most people are receptive to a story about little guys crushed by an indifferent state bureaucracy. But the little guys in the audience at Leicester Square were peers of the realm and Eton boys." Eton is a school. It sounds like
they were Eton boys.
There's an uncomfortable irony in a film raging against the stacked deck of European crony capitalism being screened to an audience full of hereditary aristocrats. They object to an EU elite telling us what to do, so they financed a feature documentary in which they tell us what to do, with their great leaders shot from slightly below, talking down to the mass of voters. The victims of EU regulation here aren't ordinary workers, but businessmen and bosses. They complain that Brussels is interfering in their daily lives because they are the subjects of history, while the rest of us are supposed to cling tight to their coattails, pathetically grateful to just be given a job. Which I think is such an astute analysis of like what these guys are railing against. Like, sure, if we, for example, transition to a more sensible land use pattern, they might not have the freedom to park for free wherever they want anymore. But that's not the kind of freedom that applies in the same way to like a minimum wage worker who literally can't get to work without a car and is now saddled with all of these expenses.
Yeah, that's a really good point, where like they like the freedoms that they currently have that fundamentally disadvantage people with less than them.
Yeah. What about the freedom to not live right next to a fucking coal-fired power plant? What about the freedom to, like, breathe air that isn't full of soot?
Nicole, if you want those freedoms, go live in a tree. Okay? I'm sorry. You're poor. You gotta live in a tree. I mean, this is the shit that really galls me, where it's like there are problems with the world. Mm-hmm. The government's job is to fix them. And this is the kind of problem that, like, we cannot solve individually because of bounded rationality and externalities and all of the obvious problems with late-stage capitalism. So in order to fix it, we need, like, a concerted effort from the government. And these guys are like, the government's trying to take away my freedoms.
Yeah.
And that's a bummer to me. That's, you know what, to me, that's just a bummer.
And they also don't discuss at all the fact that, like, I even as, like, a rich white lady am relatively powerless to make any change that I want to make, certainly compared to any company that is able to pull the levers of Congress. You know, any company that's given millions of dollars to political campaigns, any company that has a full staff of lobbyists ready to go anytime they might face any kind of repercussion anywhere. That's not freedom for me, an individual who I will fully acknowledge that across the spectrum of people, I have it pretty good. And I am powerless against, you know, the Fords of the world to, like, you know, put a little less money on the highways, please. Give us a train, please.
I mean, we just had congestion pricing in New York, a thing that, like, everybody, like, at least 2/3 of the open comments were positive and in favor of congestion pricing, with the plan of, like, that money going to bolster the public transportation system so that, like, people with cars would have to pay a little more for the damage that they are definitely doing to the streets and the air quality, and that money could go to support public transportation to get people with less money into the city to their jobs faster, more conveniently, and that got torpedoed by a Democratic governor. I hesitate to speculate why, but it sort of feels like a re-election problem from some of her more wealthy donors.
Yeah, totally. I don't hesitate to speculate why. Like, there can kind of be no other reason.
She might have run out of time, Nicole.
So anyway, all of this is to say, like, these new arguments come down to these guys being like, I liked the way that I had things all my life. I liked being the smartest guy in the room.
I like the way that I remember things being, not the way that they were.
Yeah. These guys liked the way that, like, they were the top of the social hierarchy. They, within the system, could do whatever they wanted. They could drive wherever they wanted. Their grandkids would talk to them.
They were popular and they were respected.
Yeah. They were winning Nobel Prizes. They were, like, getting invited to their colleagues' wine parties.
Yeah. Honestly, the freedom that's being taken away is the freedom to get invited to their colleagues' wine parties. And that, I think, is the bottom line, where they're like, I used to have it really good and I have it bad now, and it can't be my fault because I'm a physicist.
It's got to be the government.
Yeah. Nicole, I noticed on your wall behind you, you have your framed UCB diploma.
Yeah.
And
a thing that I have.
And know exactly where it is.
Yes.
Well, let's put those diplomas to good use in a little improv section.
Let's do it.
Okay. Clunk, clunk, clunk. I hereby call this meeting of the Deep State Illuminati to order. Roll call. I am the chairman. Clang, clang, clang.
Mr. Chairman, I have some concerns about the way we're doing roll call.
We're right in the middle of roll call.
It's a little confusing.
Clang, clang. Objection. Sustained. You gotta say your name. Roll call. I am the chairman, and my name is Thompson.
Oh, we're going with the one name, like your share, Thompson.
Damn it. Okay, roll call over, roll call over.
I didn't get to say my name.
Well, if you really
Skeletor.
You got such a boner for saying your name, try saying your name once in the first 45 seconds of roll call.
I've never been to a roll call where you say it's typically the. Have you never been to a classroom before?
Objection. I have never been to a classroom. I was homeschooled.
As were we all.
3 cheers to homeschool. Hakaraka!
Wait, no, we hate homeschool because we want everyone to go to public school where we can brainwash them,
Oh, that's
right?
right. God, it's so hard to keep our plan straight. All right, let's talk about our plan.
This is because we refuse to write anything down so that people have to find clues to our behavior. I would like to move that we stop using clues-based record keeping and instead just write things down.
Well, okay. Let's not make any rash decisions. Let me pull up the minutes from the last meeting. All right, it's a pair of eyeballs and an eagle with its head cut off and one single horse tooth.
I'm just saying, as the note keeper, it's hard for me to alphabetize and keep track of things.
Okay, first order of business, we'll stop taking clues-based notes at the Illuminati deep state. All in favor, say your name.
God damn it, Skeletor.
And Thompson. That passes, I guess. This is a democracy. This is not a democracy.
No, it's a top-down organization.
That's right.
Second order of business.
Wait, okay. I like this because I'm the chairman, but I like you throwing an order. This is chaos.
Second order of business.
Yes.
Control.
Yes, oh God. Where are we on control? We've been at this for, I want to say, 70 years. We have every top-ranking member of every government academic institution.
And several
the press and the
celebrities.
media. All the celebrities, except for Thomas Cruise.
We'll get him one day.
We'll get him. We'll pry him loose.
Every time I try to get him, he jumps out of a helicopter and away from me.
I try to grab him, but his thetans protect him. One day, Thomas will have you. Okay. And I'm his son. That's my name, Thompson. Pretty good callback. A little too soon, actually. Okay, going back. All right. Well, control. 70 years we've been trying to control the world's population, and we have all the tools and money available. Where are we? Skeletor?
Not far.
What? Okay, be more specific, please.
Okay. People are still moving about freely.
What the fuck?
They're still not eating bugs.
You're telling me we didn't
and
take
my
their
whole
cars?
thing is getting people to eat bugs.
Hang on. I have to say I never saw He-Man. Is Skeletor trying to get people to eat bugs?
Well, it's all the climate deniers have identified that I'm trying to get people to eat bugs.
Oh, non-canonically, Skeletor does want people to eat bugs. That's what you're saying.
I don't know what Skeletor wants. Just yes and me.
I was doing one of those bits where you drill down on the specifics and we maybe mine some comedy out of that. Moving right along. Okay, where are we with taking people's cars away?
Okay. We were poised to execute our perfect plan, making people pay $15 to drive in Lower Manhattan.
Oh, so devious, and so it passed with flying colors.
No, a Democratic governor didn't do it because of small businesses or something.
Curses! We let that one Democratic governor slip through our net. Surely other states have banned cars like we wanted, right?
Not even a little bit.
Oh, well, the numbers are going down, surely.
There's more cars than ever, and they're getting bigger and bigger.
Oh, so we've controlled everything for 70 years, and we can't even take their cars away?
We can't even get them to pay $15.
Gah!
Now I have a question for you.
Clang, clang, clang. No questions for me.
Well, then you just said no. I proposed a base reality.
Shit.
You said no. I was asking a question. You immediately, you no-butted me.
Take my hammer. It's brass and it's a
Clang,
big,
clang, clang.
Curses.
Now I have a question for you.
Yes. And
Where-
what is it?
Where are we at with brainwashing the academic institutions to doing climate research?
Oh, I thank you very much for asking that. We have taken over every level of academic institutions. Yes, and we've allocated 0.12% of all the funding to the social science of climate mitigation, possibly less depending on how you parse the search algorithms.
Okay. That doesn't seem like very much.
Well, not technically, but you gotta know, we've only had control of all the academic institutions and the government that grants that money for 70 years, possibly since the beginning of history if the $1 bill is to be believed.
That's true. We haven't had a lot of time.
I've got a lot on my plate right now.
Same.
I've got to make sure Kelly Ripa doesn't get more famous.
Okay, so far it seems like we've done a pretty bad job of taking people's cars away and pushing our agenda in woke social studies classes.
Well, it's not my fault. There's a small select group of freedom fighters who are deeply unpopular with their peers, are not actively researching or publishing papers, and are mostly physicists. But somehow they've managed to stymie our every move at every angle.
Yes, if only the Baroness Fox of Buckley had never created the Academy of Ideas.
Curse that Academy of Ideas!
That's the only thing standing between us and full control of the United States and I guess also UK government.
I have a plan. I have a plan that's going to
Let
work.
me give you your little hammer back.
Thank you. It's not a little hammer, okay? It's a
I've
brass
seen bigger.
gavel. Okay, there's no need to say hurtful things. We're on the same team.
Okay.
We've been on the same team for quite a while.
I'm not arguing with you.
I know you're not arguing. I want
I'm
to
just
impress
saying if
upon
we're
you
on
what my
the same
feelings
team,
are hurt.
I don't know why you railed so hard against our team shirts that I got us.
Because merchandise is capitalism, which I think we hate. I'm pretty sure. I could check the notes, but I do see capitalism and a red X, but I also see a bird and a Herbie Hancock picture.
This is what I'm telling you about the symbols-based notes system.
Okay, you want to hear my plan, or do you want to keep railing against the notes?
Hit me with your plan.
Okay, we change nothing about what we've been doing.
Uh-huh.
It hasn't worked.
Yes.
But we keep doing the same thing.
Okay.
And that will work.
I love it.
All right. And just to show you that I truly am on your same team, let me show you what's under my robe.
The shirt.
The shirt. Call back.
I don't know if it's a callback, if it's the last thing we said before this beat.
That's true, but my other callback wasn't much of a callback either, which is a
callback. Meeting adjourned. Clang, 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 clang.
The Climate Deniers Playbook was created by Rollie Williams, that's me, Nicole Conlan, and Ben Boult.
Our hosts are Rollie Williams and Nicole Conlan, who is me, and our executive producer is Ben Boult.
The show is produced by Gregory Haddock and edited by Brittany Terrell.
Our researchers are Carly Rizzuto, Canute Haroldson, and James Crugnale.
Theme music from the smooth, sultry mind of Tony Dominic.
And artwork by Jordan Dahl, who, yes, is technically my boyfriend, but that's not why we hired him. He's actually just really good at art.
Special thanks to the Civil Liberties Defense Center.
And to all of you who actually listen to the show.
And apparently even the credits.
Now that's dedication.
Hey! Ho! Da, 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 da. Yeah. Da, 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 da. Lumineers, baby.
Were you...
Denver.